Hi, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and this is Relationship Alchemy. Today, we're going to be talking about soft and strong on feminine leadership with Ekene Onu. Ekene Onu is a transformational executive coach, DEI consultant, and feminine leadership expert. Following a career of 2 decades as a healthcare professional, she reinvented herself and underwent a personal revolution to reclaim her feminine power and chose to create a life of passion and purpose. And now she supports many women in doing the same. Welcome to the show, Ekene.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes, so glad you're here. So I reached out to you because you wrote this gorgeous post about a cover that Rihanna had on Vogue, where she was in front of her partner, and it sparked a lot of dialogue online about emasculation and how they should be side by side and all these things. And you wrote this gorgeous post that I want to share a little bit of because it was really the inspiration for this conversation. I just love your perspective and thought it was so brilliant. So the first thing you said was, or that I highlighted, is the truth is often when a woman is very successful, there's the idea that her masculine partner is emasculated, especially if said woman is confident and unbothered. And then you went to talk about this sort of push these days for performative femininity and how we're supposed to behave in a certain way to make sure our men feel okay, which always felt infantilizing to me. And my favorite thing he said is because the future isn't female, which is also a phrase I have not been in agreement with. It is not male. It is female, male and female.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start our conversation there. Can you say a bit about this dynamic of successful women, their men? How do we navigate that more effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. That article, the cover, the post that I wrote was actually my first ever viral kind of post. It was crazy. The sort of the response people had to it was crazy and amazing. I even got a free ride out of it, by the way. I was at the airport and met a couple. She said, "You look so familiar to me," because she follows me on LinkedIn. She follows me because someone sent her that post. And she was like, "Oh my God, you wrote that post." She tells her husband and he says, "Oh, that same post, we're going to give you a ride. Where are you going? Wherever you go, we're going to give you a ride." And I tell that story to highlight, one, I love that it was a couple. And I love that they shared it with each other. And they were a young, vibrant couple. But it highlighted to me how meaningful it was, this messaging, and perhaps how needed, right? We're living in a very polarizing time. Like I feel for the last number of years, we've been polarized. If it's not on one issue, it's on another. Everyone is taking the extreme position. And around gender, we're seeing perhaps things that have been undercurrents for years, for decades, but now it's coming to a head in a particular way. And I wrote that because I was looking at the cover and I thought how awesome it was. And I saw her husband and I thought, what an incredible husband. And I saw him looking at the baby, because if you see on the cover, he's actually holding his baby, looking very lovingly at his baby. And you see her, the way I saw it, she's up front, but she's reaching back the way, like, I need you, like I need your strength to be able to do this work, to be able to stand up here. And that's the way I saw it. And so when I saw the response, the vitriol by some people saying, "Oh, he's emasculated and this, that, and the other," I started out by writing, we really see things as we are. And I saw it from a lens because my experience as a leadership coach who works with successful women, right? My experience has been that most of the women I work with have supportive spouses, whether they are spouses who are leading in the finances or not. They're deeply supportive. They need their spouses for everything that they're doing, and their spouses need them as well, or their partners. They're not even always married, right? They're partners, and they rely deeply on their masculine partners. For me, even in my life, I rely on the masculine in my life, whether it's my brother, my dad when he was alive, just the different men in my life have all added so much value and continue to do so. So I don't see, when I saw that cover, I was shocked to see, just the vitriol. And so I wrote a response to that. And it is true. I think that when women are successful, right? And I do coach around this, and particularly Black women, unfortunately, or women of color. Let me not say Black women of color in particular, although we have certain cultural nuances.
For sure.
That we have to kind of look at that intersectionality, right? But when I work with women, I find that, there is almost a social penalty of success.
Yeah.
And so when the more successful a woman becomes, she has to start walking on eggshells, particularly if she's successful in a male-dominated field.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's successful in a field that is typically with women, that's okay, right? It's not as bad. But if you're now, think about Hillary Clinton and what we did to her, right? So we start, and with this is keeping politics out of it, but just the idea of a highly respected woman doing, what she's doing. In a way, we punish, in a way, socially. We punish. And so you find that when women become really successful, they're expected to almost be apologetic. Like, it's almost like, they downplay.
Like they downplay.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, it's not really that big a deal, or it's the team. Yeah.
And if they don't do that, if they are unapologetic, much like Rihanna, who's a is she Gen Z? I don't know. Or at least a young
know.
Right. And I find that the younger generations, they don't have time for all of our stuff. Right. They are. And whether you like it or not, that is it. Right. And so they are unbothered. They are unapologetic. And so you have this woman who has worked hard to accomplish what she's been able to accomplish, right? The kind of hours that she's probably put in, most of us couldn't put that kind of time in, right? So
she works hard.
Yes.
That woman performed pregnant up on a thing in the Super Bowl. I'm like, who does that?
Right, not me. Right.
No, not me.
Right. So she's done the work. She gets the cover. It's an honor. Right. And then she has a partner with her. She didn't have to have a partner with her. Right. She has
she chose that.
I actually thought, wow, this is such a beautiful message, because I find women fall into a couple of different categories. And I talked about it in the article that some women unconsciously opt out of greatness because they don't want to deal with the penalty, or they feel if they're single, they feel like they won't find love the higher they go. Particularly
that all the time. I hear that all the time. Yeah.
They won't find love. Or if they do find love, they won't be able to feel cherished. Because the way we understand cherish is that the power dynamic has to be there for you to really feel cherished, which is not actually true, right?
Right.
So they have that. And, they opt out of greatness. They're subconsciously saying, I'm not sure I want this. They're holding themselves back, right? Because they want to make sure they have love. Or even in relationships, when you have, maybe they know consciously or unconsciously that their spouse may not be expansive enough to be able to make space for the next version of them, right? So these are very just real things. And I think I gave voice to it in the article, without being angry, but just saying, this is really let's just talk about it. This is the reality. This is what we're dealing with. Now that we know, what do we want to do about it? That was kind of what I was trying to say with that article. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it from a lens of understanding, right? Most of us, whether, this capitalism in general, right, holds everybody's down in one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
And depending on your particular grouping, right? Your different sectors of your identity. Like, I'm a Black African woman, right? And I'm a Gen Xer, and so many different little boxes. Depending how I see the world and experience the world through either certain privileges or not, right? In this particular world, and it makes me a certain way, and men the same way. If we start to take a look at those things and deconstruct those things, and then ask ourselves, how do we really want to connect with each other, I think it will really make a big difference. But in order to do that, we have to start being honest and authentic in ourselves. And that's
then we have to ask, like, well, what is the lens through which I'm looking?
Yes.
That's affecting what I see.
Absolutely. 100%. Because and that's when you start to look at yourself, because to look at outward, you have to first be able to recognize you have a lens, which is work of self-awareness, right? And with me, when I work with my clients, that is really the whole crux of the matter. And this is why we call it iconic womanhood, because it's not, so people call me a femininity coach a lot, which I don't have a problem with, because I think authentic femininity is a beautiful thing.
It's gorgeous.
It irks me a little bit because right now, and I'm not trying to be, to your point, controversial, but it does irk me, one, because I'm a mom of 2 girls. Beautiful. One wouldn't call her, she's not a girl, she's 27, right? So I have she's a grown woman doing her own thing. I have another about to go to college. And when I look at the messaging around femininity today, which is this performative piece, right? Which is back to the cover, right? Like, how dare Rihanna? So based on the messaging today, the idea was that she was supposed to be, she should have been at the back. And she should have been like, oh, no, don't look at me. I know I'm a Super Bowl performer. I know I did it all. I know I have a, Fenty. And I know I've been able to create $1 billion brand.
I know I'm a billionaire.
I'm just, please don't.
Yes.
Right. Look at him. Don't look at me. Right. And then she would have been lauded. Right. Yeah. But there's a disconnect there too, because that actually would have taken away ASAP Rocky, which I believe is her husband's name, his agency,
yes.
It would have, it's like I think you and I had a pre-conversation and you said it infantilizes the man, diminishes men. I think
it diminishes his capacity to be really in his nobility. At least the way I look at things and the way I work with people is the noble masculine understands that it is supportive. It understands that uplifting, if he's with a woman, uplifting her is part of his noble role.
Absolutely.
And so to me, when I looked at that cover, I felt like you did. I said, wow, he really gets it.
Yes.
And his ego is not so much like when he's on stage and is center stage.
That's right. When it's his.
And when it's his time, but when it's her time, he doesn't have to try to take it from her.
That's right.
I just deeply respected both of them in that moment. It was such a powerful image.
I believe that as well. In fact, I love how he's called it noble masculine. Because I said to someone, I said, when you see a man in his true masculine, it is something to behold.
Oh, yeah.
Something. Yeah. Because, and this, again, this is part of this messaging around performative femininity and this idea of fearing women who are powerful, and that all women who are powerful want to take power from men and want to fight. Like there's this false notion, because again, I work with women who are powerful all day long, right?
Yeah.
And all of them, the women I work with, one, they love being women. 2, they love hearing and connecting with their men, not even just from a romantic place, but they love to come and lead. Let's lead to you lead, I lead. It's not a fight. We're working together. It's a collaborative effort, right? And it's so beautiful when you see it. Can I share an image with you, right? About masculine and feminine, how they work together in concert. We have both of them in our systems, but when I think about men and women, because we typically, when we say masculine, we're thinking men. And when we say feminine, we're thinking women. So let's think about that, right? I want to talk about a hot air balloon ride. Right? Now, if you've ever been on a hot air balloon ride, so then you remember the process, right? The balloon is made of this particular material. It's not just any material. It's a material that has to be strong enough to be able to withstand the altitude change, the winds, right? And it also has to be able to contain the heat. because it comes and it's flaccid, and then they fill it with cold air, right? And then they bring the heat to heat up the air. So when I think about the masculine and the feminine, I think about the masculine being like the balloon, the covering.
Yeah.
Right? And the feminine being the fire.
Oh, I just got chills.
And when they can work together, they rise. Because without the structure, because the masculine brings the structure.
Yeah.
Right? And so without that structure, and the feminine is all flow, no matter, you would heat the air and it would just dissipate. There would be no structure. So, but without the air, that structure cannot be full. You can't see
it doesn't rise.
It doesn't rise. You don't see it in its glory. And so we work in concert. And so when I see us fighting, or there's some confusion, or there are a lot of purveyors of bitterness, is what I've been saying. Like, there are a lot of gurus right now, whether it be people, and I know you have a podcast, I have a podcast, so we're not knocking podcasters, but a lot of people are using podcasts to share from a place of their woundedness. Yes. There are a lot of people on social media right now, right? Everyone has a platform now, which is wonderful. But what it means is that, people can use their charisma to sell their bitterness, and they don't even know they're selling bitterness. They're brokenhearted, I believe, because some of the stuff you're listening to, like, who hurt you? Somebody hurt you. Because this doesn't even make logical sense, what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
But when you're hurting, just like if you're talking to someone who's wounded or who's hurting, it's illogical. They don't care. It's illogical. That's what I think is happening. There's so much woundedness now. And so we're disconnecting from the truth of who we need to be. Because you talked about the noble masculine. Well, let's even talk about the noble feminine.
Exactly.
Right? Because I was just on TikTok. Well, let me confess. Sometimes I do get lost on there.
Right. Oh, me too.
Well, it's on TikTok. And it's incredible to me how many pages there are dedicated to teaching women how to manipulate men. Now,
I know this is part of why I'm stepping away from identifying as a relationship coach, because I don't do any of that. And if that's what people want, I'm not selling that.
I don't think that's what people want, because I think people, again, this is this wounded place. I think people have been hurt. Like, I know women that have been hurt that have said, oh, I'm never going to let anyone use me again. I'm never going to let anyone cheat on me again or hurt me again. So therefore, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Like, it's bitterness, right? Bitterness that comes out.
And it stays in the one up, one down power dynamic that we're trying to move beyond.
Exactly. And here's what I was talking to a young lady who feeds into the notion of this. So she wants the soft life. I was like, I don't have a problem with the soft life, because that's another language. Like, I want the soft life. I want the soft life. Who doesn't want this? Who doesn't want the soft life? Who wants a hard life? But I don't believe a soft life means that you give up your autonomy and your agency, and that you don't have a purpose to your life, because femininity is not ornamental.
Oh my God. Would you say that again, please?
Femininity is not ornamental. Listen, we're putting it on a t-shirt, because it's so frustrating to me as a woman, as a mother, and my daughters are beautiful young girls. And I tell them, you are beautiful. You can learn. You're charming. Those are wonderful things, but you are not meant to be something that is put up on a mantle and gazed upon and brought down every so often. And just look at how beautiful she is. If you allow that to be your life, you will be miserable. And years tops. And even if you're not miserable, you're putting yourself in such a dangerous position, because beauty fades.
Yes.
Beauty fades. Charm is, over time, in Nigeria, we have something we say see finish. That's what we say, right? As in, the longer someone stays with you, the less enchanted they are by you, because they see you every day. It's like they've seen you finish, right?
Yes.
And so if you have put all of your stock, everything you have in, I'm just so feminine and you are actually setting yourself up to have that same dynamic we used to have back in the day before women were as empowered, where you can be traded in for a new version.
Yeah.
And you don't have any power, right? And more than that, God didn't put you on this earth for without a purpose. You have a purpose.
And it's not only children. It can be.
Yes. But it's not only children.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's an important thing to mention too, because not everyone's going to have children.
I do.
Yeah, there you go. And if you do have children, they can't be your end all be all, right?
Because you put you end up putting a lot of pressure, all your unrealized dreams, all of your wounding, all of anything you haven't worked out in yourself goes there.
Right.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so I love that you're saying we need to have our own lives as well as be mothers if we're mothers, right? That doesn't have to be your be all end all.
Absolutely. Not you, everything, whether you're a mother, whether you're a wife, whatever you are, all the different roles you play are just part of your doing. You really have to be grounded in your being. Who are you? Why are you here? What is your purpose for existing? And that flows into every other part of your life. And so when one role is no longer as central, so for example, I'm getting to that space in my life where I'm not parenting actively. I'm moving into that inspirational parenting place, right? Where it's like, thanks, Mom, thanks for your opinion. I appreciate it. I shall do what I think is best.
You have to do whatever I want. Yeah.
You have to be able to let go and let God, but you have to be able to let go in those kinds of scenarios. And the only reason why a lot of women struggle at that phase, right? Because they have nothing else. So I think it's imperative that we begin to have these authentic conversations about the feminine and the masculine, both in relationship with each other, but then also in relationship with ourselves.
Yes.
Feeling really good.
Coming back to this question of leadership and leading from the feminine.
Yeah.
Tell me if you see this too. I feel like since we have both inside of us, since many of us live in male-dominated cultures, we've internalized ideas about what leadership looks like and how we're supposed to lead that can create an inner conflict that's difficult to navigate. So that even to talk about feminine leadership, I imagine for some of our listeners might be like, wait, what now? What? Right? Because it's like, how do you lead? Because they have this idea of the feminine as being as soft or sitting in the back or acquiescing or anything like that. And so how do you talk about feminine leadership in a way that clarifies this?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's dig into it, right? So yes, to your point, we do have both. So first of all, the whole masculine and feminine energy, what I tell people is it's a framework to look at how we show up. It's not gospel. It's not science, right? But it's shown up in a lot of ancient cultures. And when you see things showing up over and over and over and over again in different parts of the world, you start to understand that there's something there, right? And it's an idea, it's a framework, it's whatever you want to call it, that really does make sense. It helps us, it gives us some illumination on how we show up. And the idea is we have both. We all have both. The feminine is more, like I said earlier, the flow, more like a river, more like, in fact, I like the silk kind of flowing, the flow. Creativity, nurturing, receptivity, intuitiveness. That's in the realm of the feminine. The masculine is more like a boulder, strong, solid, structure, contained, projective, just focused, right? So the two are different, but they both have their own power. Now, we've often seen masculine leadership look a certain way, which reminds me of back in the 80s. I can't remember the show. What was the show when the girls went to work and they wore the suits with the big shoulder pads? I don't remember the movie.
Well, there was 9 to 5. Was it that movie with Dolly Parton?
Yes. There was one with, I feel like Melanie Griffith was in one or something.
Oh, I can see the shoulder pads, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah. They were eating ourselves. But yeah, that's, when they would wear the big shoulder pads and the power suit and that was what success in corporate or leadership looked like. You downplay your femininity and you take on these masculine attributes. And what I found is it's still happening. We're not wearing shoulder pads anymore, but we're still doing that.
Oh, we so are. And if we don't, we get flack for it.
We do. But here's the thing that I work with my clients on is, well, when you get into, you can tailor your leadership a bit more. Mm-hmm. And even when I go into organizations and I do trainings and I start showing them other sides of power, right? And bringing the feminine in, what does that actually look like? It's not just making room for women. No, it's like we all have these opportunities, right? So for example, as a woman, I say to her, you can lean on your feminine side in the workplace. As a CEO, you can lean on your feminine side. The nurturing part of you at home might look like mothering, but in the workplace, it might look like project management because you're nurturing an idea from a place of a seed, ideation, all the way up to manifestation. That's we call it project management. I call it nurturing. It's all the same thing, right? Creativity is innovation.
Yes.
Right? There's the thing, right? We just have to understand that you can use those things. Intuition is what they call, I go in my gut. I feel it in my gut. It's the same thing. So it's always been there, but we have somehow allowed, it's like almost a branding thing. The feminine has been branded as weak, but those are really powerful tools that you can lean on as a leader. And you can train your teams. You can change your language. You can begin to even train the people around you. Because at the end of the day, what matters is performance. Yeah. What matters is productivity. And then also learning to speak the language of performance. Because women have been taught to not really own their power, own their wins and their results. And so because we don't own them and we don't own how we get to that place of results, right? Then it makes it easier to dismiss what we bring to the table. Yeah. But when you say, I felt like my intuition spot on every time. And that's why we were able to, get that multi-million-dollar contract. And I'm so excited. Or my ability to nurture my team. We brought them on and we brought, that we use our creativity, like speak to the things that you're actually doing, right?
Right. And without apology.
Without apology. And it doesn't mean being confrontational or being brash. And you can still be yourself, right? You can still be, however it is you like to show up. Because some women are more, so there's a difference between feminine energy and feminine affectation.
Yes. Please say more about that.
So feminine affectations are how we show up in the physical and our manner, right? So a woman I have a very feminine affectation in general, right? So I like to wear dresses, I'm very and I use my hands and all of that. I like lashes, I like makeup, all of those things. Very feminine affectation. Masculine affectation would be more looking like a man, right? Or for a woman, it might be more androgynous as your style of look. And then some people, even the way they speak, they're stronger in their tone. They're just more controlled. Their affectations might be more masculine, just like you have men who have affectations that are more feminine, more what we consider feminine. And it's so to the point that we called it a metrosexual, like we have those terms, right? And that was what that meant, affectations. Energy is what I was talking about before, where it's the river and the boulder, right?
I was about to say, as you were speaking, that picture of a river and the banks, came to me. And I was thinking about how what you're talking about, both are necessary. You need the flow of the river, you need the containment of the banks, and Uh, Neither is more important or above the other. It's a both and. And in that way, there's the containment part of leadership and there's the flow part of leadership. And just because we've named those things, masculine and feminine, it then gets coded with, oh, good, bad, strong, weak, etc. But if you think about it like a river and its banks, or your gorgeous image of a balloon and the heat that makes it rise, that to me gets more at the essence of the truth.
Yes. Yes. And for each of us, for example, when I talk about feminine leadership, I'm honoring that there are some of us, we lean more into our feminine than we do into our masculine, and some lean more into our masculine than we do in our feminine. So I'm the sort of CEO that needs I am very creative, intuitive. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, right? That's me.
Same.
Yes. And, and I recognize when I needed to, when I was all about flow, when I first started my business, people say, how long have you been in business? I incorporated my business. I incorporated in about, I can't remember when exactly, feminine, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And, but I wasn't really a business. It was more of a hobby because I was in flow, I was flowing. But when I started to get serious and say, listen, I have to make money and I have to be sustainable, right? If I'm not making money, this is not going to work. I had to put structure in place.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always fun. It's still not fun for me to have structure. But what I realized, because I'm naturally someone who leans into that part of me, my feminine, I have to have support and scaffolding around me that is so I would be good with, I have mostly women who work with me, but they're women that have strengths in their masculine, right? What quote unquote, like organizational structure, that sort of thing. So I need to support myself with people who are more on that side, because then that way we move forward. Without that, then I can't move forward, right? Or you find women, like I said, they're trying to do it so much. I have women, some of the work that I do with women, I do these VIP days, I do retreats, I do personal experiences for clients. And one of the areas we focus on a lot for successful women, right, is that they've come into something I'm calling feminine burnout. We talk about burnout a lot, but what we talk about, I think, is more, I would call masculine burnout. So that's when you're no longer showing up at work. You're kind of, you're apathetic, you're burnt out, your performance drops, right? But a lot of women don't have masculine burnout per se, right? Before they get to masculine burnout, I think they get to something I'm calling feminine burnout. Their performance does not drop. They're still delivering. They're still productive. They're still hitting all, whatever, ticking all the boxes, but they are becoming more dry.
Light is dim.
The light is dim. Yes. They're losing their radiance. They're losing their joie de vivre. They're losing their passion. You ask, what do you want to do? I don't know. I don't care. The only thing that gets them excited is that next achievement, whether it be in business or at work. So they're chasing the next win because the other parts of them are so turned off.
Yeah.
So turned off. And they need to wake back up again, right? And so I work with women, a lot of my private clients, they come to me for that. How do I get back to me again? And it feels as if it's like the investment that wakes you up for your whole life, whether it's women so I'm not a relationship coach, but I have been to a number of weddings from my clients because when they wake back up again, it's like in New York, beautiful woman, fabulous, well put together, all of that. But she's like, how come I'm not connecting? I'm not attracting the attention of the kind of man I want to attract. Well, it's like you're a taxi in New York, but your light is off. So they're not going to flag you down because they just don't even see your light is off.
Yeah.
You need to put your light back on, like you said, right? By getting back to yourself. And that's what happens when you're out of balance. You don't know whether I know I lead with my feminine. My clients, we work together to decide, to discover, not decide, where do you really lean into? Okay, now let's design a plan that makes sense for you. So that, even if you have to have a lot of structure, then you have to restore with other things. You have to really be very intentional about how you map out your life in order to really be your best and live your best.
That's beautifully said. So listeners can find you at
iconicwomanhood.com.
Yes, that's what I thought. So iconicwomanhood.com.
But I'm also and all the socials.
Exactly. All the socials and all of that is going to be in the show notes. So go find her information in the show notes. Follow her. Such a brilliant way of looking at things. I just really deeply appreciate your perspective and feel we're very aligned in how we approach things. And I just love that you're a stand for soft and strong, that they do not have to be different or separate from one another, that we are both and.
Thank you.
Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave folks with today?
I just want to say thank you. I thank you for reaching out. I thank you for, taking that next step. And I honor that deeply and continue to encourage each of us to be more fearless in our connections, to amplify when we see messaging that really resonates with us. And so I really just want to honor you and thank you for bringing me on.
Oh, thank you so much. It feels really delicious to receive.
I love that word. Delicious.
Oh, it's such a good word. I love that word too. So until next time, folks, remember that a great relationship and life starts with you.